Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Van Holtz here, back again with another E-Commerce Conversations. Hope all is going well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the Internet from me today, Josh Durham with Align Growth Management. What's up, Josh?
What's up, my dude? Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the show. You're joining me from Nashville, Tennessee, right?
Yeehaw.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
As with all my guests, I'm always excited that they're on the show. Josh is no exception to that. Our days go back, I guess it's been, about 2 or 3 years since we met at a Clavio.
Yeah, Clavio.
You call it Clavio?
No, I like the hard A.
Okay.
I think it's Clavio.
Yeah. So we met at a Clavio, what was that, September 2019?
2019. Yeah, it was like in the fall.
Yeah. And I sat at the table with you and what's the dude's name?
Brett was there at the time.
I don't think it was Brett who I was talking to. Maybe it was Brett. It wasn't Brett.
Was it our email guy or our CMO?
I think it was the CMO.
It was Brett at the time.
Okay.
And then Bryant stepped in after that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because Bryant is from Purple.
Yeah. He used to be the head of paid media at Purple Mattress.
Yeah. So it was definitely Brett. And those conferences, I'm sorry, I'm kind of hijacking it, but those conferences are really interesting because I always go in with an open mind and no expectations. And, I'm not in the daily email world. I'm not sending emails out. I'm not working in Clavio. Big fan of Clavio. I think it's great. We use it, but I know nothing about how to set up a flow or a campaign or SMS blast and stuff like that.
Right.
So for me, it was just kind of shoot the shit. And it was just grabbing breakfast, talking to you guys where I just got so much knowledge and information. I'm like, oh man, I was just so jacked up to go home after talking with you guys. So anyways, sorry to ramble on about how we met many years ago. Why don't you go ahead and kind of give your introduction of what you've been up to, kind of your story, how you ended up at Groove Life, and then what you're doing now.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I got into the ecom game, I guess you call it, 7 years now. So yeah, 2015, I started my first ecom brand. It was a company called Weighting Comforts, and we made weighted blankets. We were actually the first weighted blanket for adults on the market. And yeah, from there, scaled up that business. We employed refugee women in Nashville, Tennessee to provide a sustainable source of income and also paid English classes on site. But anyways, kind of cut my teeth on my own ecom brand. From there, scaled that business to about $6 million a year. And then it tanked overnight. It was brutal. I had to fire everyone.
What happened? Did just Facebook dry up or something? Or
the market kind of fell out from under us. So kind of for one, we didn't evolve on our product well. We didn't get past kind of the 2.0 of our product. And then also manufacturing in the States was kind of our biggest downfall. So, our competitors had automated it in China. They were making weighted blankets for $5 a pop. My cost was, 40 or 50. And all of a sudden the margin just was taken out of the market as soon as Target came on the market with their own at the time. And so, yeah, the margins weren't there anymore. And then that affected Facebook ads. Our overhead was super gnarly, just really didn't make sense.
Oh man. So you just saw month over month kind of sales disappear.
Yeah, we kind of started seeing that in fall of 2018 was really where we kind of started seeing some of the initial, shakes in the foundation. I remember specifically I was 2 weeks out from Black Friday and we didn't have enough cash for our payroll to get there. And running an early bird sale to our email list, shout out to Clavio, and to get some cash in the door. But ultimately, it was kind of a market fit margin thing at the same time as Facebook ads were getting a little bit more expensive during that time period. But it was really a product issue overall.
Do you have any kind of regrets or learned lessons? Should have you gone to China to source your product or?
Yeah, I feel like maybe the proper solution, since the only thing that was really differentiating us in the market was how it was made. And then also I co-founded that with my mom, and she was like a marriage and family therapist. And so having her kind of as like the front and center spokesperson for that business really resonated with the audience. And so I think that like if there had been a blend of maybe there's some kind of social enterprise impact stateside while maybe manufacturing overseas, maybe we could have kept that story and that part of it. But I felt like we would have just lost any kind of differentiation in the market, and we were just going to be, just another weighted blanket brand.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's bad about being another weighted blanket brand if you're still around versus if you kind of go out of business?
True. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's also like lots of debt in that business too.
Yeah.
So that was another big thing. I actually just tweeted this yesterday. We leveraged almost like $1 million in debt towards the end of the business trying to keep it open. And that was like just a super scary situation. So there wasn't really like, I didn't really see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
That was kind of like, okay, if we're going to launch anything new, why wouldn't we do this under a different LLC that's not, struck with debt? And so that was kind of the kicker. And so we closed that in May 2019.
So you shut her down. You didn't sell the business at all. Was there any kind of like liquidation or?
Yeah. So it was more of an asset sale. So we sold it for the brand, kind of like the proprietary things about the brand. So, we had a trademark, the email list, like we sold that to a digital marketing agency and they were kind of using it as their in-house brand. So we did exit from it, but it wasn't like the exit was large enough to pay off the large amount of debt that was left over.
Yeah. So you said you accumulated $1 million of debt.
Yeah. It was like $1 million.
And then I assume you signed personal guarantees for that. And
yeah, it was PGs with a bank line of credit, which the bummer about all this is, it wasn't like I was out here just trying to use debt to fund this business. It was kind of like I had a line of credit that was kind of just there as a last, like an emergency situation. And then we just ended up not hitting some of the projections throughout the year. And we just needed that cash to fund inventory for our very ambitious projections. And so some of that too, timing of the market, product, but some of that also was because of our, we tried to go from like 2 mil a year to 10.
Yeah.
And that was too ambitious.
I feel like that's kind of like the whole crux of building a business is like the impatience of what it takes to get to where it needs to go and just wanting to go from 2 million to 10 million in a year. Because you always hear stories about it, right? You always hear about the unicorns that just blow up, native deodorant. They're all a dime a dozen. And I think it puts a lot of strain on a business because we kind of saw that this year. It's just like the faster you grow, the more you got to put into inventory. The more you put into inventory, the more you tie your cash up. The more you tie your cash up, the less money you have to market it. And then you kind of get stuck with all this inventory and then not the capital to sell it.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. And then you go into doing a sale every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a spiral, man. It's deadly.
Yeah, so I think it's like one of the hardest things to do is really like manage your cash flow so much that, maybe you're not growing at the rate that you want to grow, but you've got the cash flow to be able to prevent you from doing dumb marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember seeing our friend Patrick Cadu. Is that how you say his last name?
Well, it sounds like Canoe. So.
That sounds like Canoe. I think it's Cadu. But I remember seeing him tweet a picture last Christmas of like all these boxes. And he's like, my entire net worth is in these boxes. I was like, that is how it feels, having all that cash locked up.
Patrick Cadu of Supply, who's been on this podcast a couple times. So be sure to follow him on Twitter. And he's always dropping information bombs. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know, the amount of beard oil and like shampoo and conditioner that I personally own is outrageous if you think about it as a business, as an extension of your ownership. So did that, like you said you wanted a business with your mom. Was she carrying any of that debt? Are you in speaking terms with your mom?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, she had a portion of that debt for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were some other vendors. I won't name any of the other vendors, but yeah, it was all basically personally guaranteed.
Yeah. Now, how do you pay off $1 million of debt?
Just one bite at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, the kind of route that we saw was going to be, we were going to have to launch a new product. And then it was going to be like a long 6 to 10 year process of paying off that, because just the free cash flow that you're going to need to pay that off is, it's pretty gnarly. But yeah, I had to file personal bankruptcy in Tennessee. So that's what I tweeted yesterday was I filed officially in September. It was August or September of 2019. So it's been 2 years, which is pretty crazy.
I think, everyone talks about the winning stories, and I love to hear these because this is like the dark side of entrepreneurship. Like, what does this do to your psyche, knowing that you've had to file bankruptcy? And what does bankruptcy look like? What does this process look like? Hopefully nobody has to go through it, but...
Right. I mean, for one, it was a dark, dark time, right? Because I kind of had this high, right? When you're scaling a business, you see all these new, you look at Shopify every day, you have a lot more revenue coming in. It's like an exciting time, right? And as you know, when like an ad hits, it really hits. And so it's kind of like a drug. And so I was kind of like on this high, I made like the Forbes lists kind of thing during that time. But then like within 9 months, I was out of business. And so it was just like a huge whiplash. And yeah, I think just like the mental exhaustion of like, I was just trying new things every week to try to keep the business alive, as our overhead was super expensive and we're having to put people on part-time basis, cut costs as much as we can necessary, try to get our marketing engine to work at a more efficient rate, all those things. It was just a lot at the same time, especially when you kind of see the writing on the wall where you might not believe in the brand anymore. That's where it gets really tough. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. I didn't know this, but people who file bankruptcy, there's some people that file bankruptcy like every 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I went to court and there's all these people in this massive credit card debt that it's like their time for every 7 years because you can only file every 7 years. I didn't realize this. And like, it was a sad experience overall, but I had so much relief afterwards. It took 3 months off. After that, I had like, hardly any cash left over, just enough to live off of for a couple months before I needed to get a job essentially. And yeah, that was like a very healing experience for me, just being able to kind of like settle down, focus on my health, get back mentally, just kind of rebuild. And that's what I've been doing for 2 years now.
So with bankruptcy, you had like that $1 million line of credit or debt. I assume that is now no longer your responsibility.
Right. So yeah, as soon as I went in front of the court and then they basically said, they draw a line in the sand, all this is discharged by the state government.
Yeah.
And so it's not my responsibility to pay.
And then are there still like relationships that you're still paying back, like credit card things, or is it just pretty much like a clean slate?
Nope. Clean slate.
But now you have to live your life on a cash basis completely, right?
No. So that's the interesting thing too. My credit score actually isn't that bad. Like after 2 years, it's not in a terrible place, but like I've had credit cards existing before that, but now I kind of use credit in terms of like, I'm able to borrow against any cash I have in stocks. Mm-hmm. So I'm with like a financial management firm that allows me to do that. So I have like that kind of debt accessible to me. I think that there's also some like workarounds, but I think also I'm pretty sure it comes off of your history in like 4 years, like halfway through that 7-year period. I think it actually comes off of your credit history, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. Did you have to wipe off credit cards as well? Or were there lines of credit and debt that you kind of kept to maintain goodwill or something?
There was good credit card debt there as well with ad spend.
Yeah. And that was wiped away.
Yeah. All of it.
This bankruptcy.
Isn't that crazy?
It sounds great, man. Maybe I should do that.
It's pretty amazing, actually. It's kind of there for this purpose. Because, like back then, if you had any kind of bankruptcy, it would be like passed on to your children.
Right.
On your last name.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be able to get debt again for your family's like lifetime, which is crazy, right? And so, yeah, it's pretty cool that the government lets you do this.
So the whole idea of like bankruptcy is just like completely new to me because I've never had to do it. And I've always thought of it as this kind of like, like the scarlet letter or whatever, like you wear this badge on you and, you're prevented from getting credit ever again and, this and that. And it sounds like it's something that you have no regrets going into.
Yeah, I don't have any regrets. I feel like historically it used to be kind of more of a very negative, like looked at in a very negative light. But everyone I've talked to, even when I put out that, that thread yesterday, I had so many people DM me like, man, I went through a similar situation, had to file bankruptcy. It wasn't fun, but I'm back on my feet now. Yeah. And everything's great. So I just feel like the general sentiment has changed a lot.
Yeah.
in that. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's also one thing if you did it maliciously,
Right.
like if you're racking up credit cards every 7 years and just to file bankruptcy, I don't recommend that. But, if you were trying to grow your business and you're doing that ethically, and, like in my situation where the market just changed from under us and we just made an honest mistake, then I think that there's things in place to get you on your feet.
I think, the other takeaway I want listeners to have, like entrepreneurship is really hard. And I know personally that as much as I tried to not have this be the case, but my personality is in line with what the business is doing. So when the business is doing great, I'm feeling great. And then when we're having down months or down days, I'm usually having down days or down months. And the idea, I kind of want to remind people, what is the worst thing that can happen in building a business and entrepreneurship? It's your business fails, you have all this money that you guaranteed, and you have to file bankruptcy. It's essentially like going through exactly what you went through.
Right.
Unless you're fraudulent, then you end up in jail, which you should be. So as long as you're doing things to the best of your abilities, honestly, and not lying about it, like who's that girl, Elizabeth Holmes or something? Theranos?
I don't know. Who's that?
The Theranos girl?
Oh, blood thing on Netflix. That was crazy.
Yeah. So as long as you're not doing it like her, you should be fine. So let's quit talking about bankruptcy. I think I've beaten it to death. And let's kind of talk about what you did next. You dug yourself out of the hole. Did you go to Groove right after that or?
Yeah. So I was kind of in between. I was trying to decide, am I going to start an agency, start freelancing for other ecom brands? But I met Peter, the CEO of Groove Life. And he was like, why don't you come work here for a year? You don't want to start another business. I was like, you're right. I'm way too tired. And so, I jumped ship, went over to Groove Life as their head of growth.
And so Groove Life, they make the silicone rings and they've grown into belts and wrist straps and stuff like that, or watch straps. What makes them so unique? How were they able to grow to, I think they're doing 50 million, 20 million, something like that. And they did see that kind of obscene growth year over year.
Right. For one, product margins, right? That allows a lot of ad spend, a lot of acquisition costs can go into acquiring customers for sure. But really, this sounds very cliche, but they just have done a great job building a brand, right? And so there's kind of an untapped market when they came into the market. And that was for, more for your guy that loves to hunt, to fish, to work with his hands, that kind of demographic, more blue collar, middle America, whereas everyone else in the market was a lot more focused on, the CrossFitters, the fitness influencers, that kind of thing. And I think that they just really hit the nail right on the head with their marketing, but also with an amazing guarantee. They stick behind their products. I think that their Groove Life products are the best on the market, and they back it up with their 94-year, no BS warranty. And so, outside of that, there's a ton of other marketing channels we can dive into as well.
The thing that got me going back to that Klaviyo conference was how you guys were able to grow on YouTube, which almost seems like a black box and not something that I feel like a lot of people on the D2C Twitter sphere kind of talk about. Is that something that's still a big part of their growth strategy? And, what are some lessons that you can have if you want to get into YouTube marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I haven't checked up with them in a while in terms of the YouTube performance, but yeah, the big keys to YouTube, it's a creative first platform, right? And so having some really fun content, it's all about that first 5 seconds on the ad, because you're interrupting someone coming into a long form video. And I think that's also part of the reason it works, is because users on YouTube, they're coming for long form content versus scrolling on Instagram, seeing a post for 2 seconds and continuing to scroll. But if you can get someone to watch a video for a minute and a half, their likeliness of purchasing from you is also going to increase depending on the audience. But yeah, some of the keys were separating out the ad account into its own ad account for attribution purposes, really, really clean testing on the intro. So we test 4 or 5 variations on the intro of, some really fun videos, but ultimately just keeping it super entertaining. And I think that's a big part that a lot of brands miss, is having entertaining content versus just direct response, salesy, and just educational. So I think the combo there of education, entertainment really sets their videos apart.
I would add that, we tried the Groove Life model, which is humor, as their form of entertainment. And we found that that did not hit at all. Either we suck at humor.
Really?
Which might be kind of the case. But like our brand is a little more aspirational. It's a little more like kind of serious motivational. So like entertainment doesn't necessarily mean humor. There's like a lot of ways that you can tell a story. Like a storytelling is entertainment. Like you go, you watch a movie, it's an hour and a half long story.
Right.
So what is that story or that thing you can tell that is going to entertain them that draws them in within that first 5 seconds? So I would just kind of like let listeners know that it doesn't have to be humor, but clearly your brand and your audience really resonate well with humor. So you were with Groove for about a couple of years?
Yep. Just like a year and a half.
Year and a half. And then you decided, tired of working for the man, gotta go out on my own again, take on another $1 million of debt. And
yeah, I was like, time to go back into debt. No, I'm just messing. Yeah, I mean, I kind of was in a transition period. So I got married last year. And so it's just kind of, just rethinking priorities. I love entrepreneurship. It's something I'm extremely passionate about. I love providing value to the market. I love creating financial freedom for myself. I love helping employ others. And, I love just the thought of like helping bring up other leaders. And so, yeah, I think ultimately it was kind of just my time to jump ship and strike out on my own.
The ad agency world from a brand perspective is super frustrating because everyone promises that they're going to scale your brand like crazy and no one can. And when I say no one can, I know there's clearly companies that can. What are the expectations you need to have as a brand owner going into a relationship working with your agency to find success, to find ways to help actually grow and scale the business?
Yeah, 100%. I think for one, like a healthy expectation is that we're not going to create a big win just off like one tactic alone, right? And I feel like that's kind of the trap that a lot of agencies have been built around is that, hey, we know the best ad tactics ever that's going to scale your brand. And in my experience, it's rarely just one thing that's going to drive the needle. Like I have seen it where, a video will take off and then it'll all of a sudden, daily revenue has tripled, but it really only lasts like 6 weeks. And so I think that like having that expectation in place and that, we're here to help make the best test that we can possible and help add to the strategy past just ad buying. And so I don't know, I just think that there's a lot more to growing an e-commerce business than just having, the best Facebook ad. There's a whole funnel and, starting from the product, which makes the biggest difference in the world. Having a founder that has a marketing mindset while they're making product, I think actually helps you set up for success from the get-go versus, hey, we have this product, go market it and figure it out. You know what I mean?
2 questions. Do you focus primarily on Facebook or what channels are you focused on?
So I'm focused on 3 channels, 1 being Facebook, 2 being email and SMS, and 3 right now, this is kind of our newest one for larger brands, is ambassador program management and sourcing product to get new creative for the brand. And so those are the kind of the 3 that we're focusing on.
The clients who are seeing success working with an agency, what are they doing well? What are the things that separate them from the ones who are floundering and throwing money into the wind?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of it is just having it always helps just having a strong internal stakeholder. So instead of outsourcing all of your responsibilities to the marketing agency, they have their own strategy, game plan, promotional calendar. Like there's new products coming out, there's already promotions planned. Like that in itself will separate you from most people. Like most brands that I come under the hood for, they don't have a promo calendar in place. There's no real strategy. Campaigns for emails are being sent randomly whenever they can get content. And so just having like some of these pillars in place of just having consistent sends on emails, flows are dialed in, there's new product coming. Like a lot of those things sound super simple, but you'd be surprised how many people don't have those dialed in.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to do those things.
Right.
Facebook and Apple are in a battle. Are there still opportunities to scale on Facebook with the loss of data collection? Or what are the key metrics that brands should be looking at right now to know that their ads are finding success?
For sure. So, as you know, the on-platform reporting is bad with the iOS 14 changes. So I think a lot of the metrics in terms of Facebook is just really looking at the on-platform data versus kind of like what I would consider a lag measure. So I kind of like to split things up between a lead measure and a lag measure. Lead measures being, CPM, click-through rate, outbound click. Like those are kind of like the big lead measures that I like to look at on platform, because that data is not going to be wonky because it doesn't involve coming off the platform for purchases. And then the lag measures being ROAS, cost per purchase, number of purchases, that kind of thing. And so I think just kind of like watching that front end to see how the creative is performing, and then having a tool like our friends over at Triple Whale and watching site-wide MER or site-wide ROAS. I like to say ROAS. I feel like MER is just a fancy way to say ROAS.
Well, how I've understood it, so MER is a marketing efficiency ratio. So whereas ROAS, you'll have, let's say, a 4x return on ad spend. So if I spend $1, I make $4. MER would be 25% for the same thing, where the ratio is that percentage. So if you like to see percentages, then go with MER. And if you like standard numbers, then go with ROAS. I think they're essentially the same thing.
That's interesting that you said that, because I've also seen people do, because the 25% MER is a 4x. They also say 4x MER.
Yeah.
And I have always just thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, just call it 4x.
But I like saying that as well. I like saying the percentage because in my mind, I think about product margins.
Yeah.
And then I think a percentage of that margin or that total price point. It kind of helps me quantify it.
Yeah, from like a P&L standpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been focused on new customer MER, or new customer return on ad spend, as a key metric for us in determining how successful we are, because we have so much organic, and
right,
we want to make sure that the paid stuff is actually working.
That's awesome. Are you just using Shopify's analytics to track that, or are you like using a Triple Whale, or
what is it called? Supermetrics plugs in.
Supermetrics.
We've got it tied into like a data studio from Google. It loads like super slow, but has all sorts of
cool metrics. Cool.
Where can people get a hold of you? Where can they learn more about what you're doing at Aligned?
Yeah, so best place to, for up to date is just my Twitter handle. It's at Josh J. Durham, Durham. And also, if you want to ever book a call, you can come to alignedgrowthmanagement.com.
Sweet, man. Yeah, you've been around the block. I appreciate you opening up, being vulnerable about the downs. And then, everyone hears about the good life of the entrepreneur. And it's tough out there. So, pour one out for all those who have struggled in building their business, as their stories typically don't get told. And I'm lucky that you've persevered to be able to continue to tell your story and help build other businesses. So thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, this has been another E-commerce Conversations. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys were able to take away a nugget of information, maybe 2 nuggets. Get 12, and it's like going to Chick-fil-A. As always, cheers. Keep on growing.